Hello and welcome to Are You a Boring Drummer with Teach Music Academy. I'm Marcus Allen right here with you today. So, there's a lot of things that many drummers are guilty of when it comes to being a boring drummer. First of all, do you do this? If so, that needs to stop right now. You've got to get up, back straight, smile, have fun, even if you hate the gig and the people that you're with, try and enjoy yourself because the audience don't know what's going on stage. You're there to perform and enjoy the music. So the best thing you can do is literally back up, smile, look like having a good time, get your head into it, put some emotion into your playing, and you'll soon start to look like you're having a bit more fun, and that's a bit of a hack there, because it's not really difficult to do. You've just got to get your back up and smile and have a good time. Follow the strokes through, be a bit more flamboyant in your playing, and you'll soon develop a habit of becoming a more interesting drummer to watch, because let's face it, that is like watching paint dry, okay? So, if that's your style, then you need to skip the video and move on to the technical stuff further down the line. But yeah, have fun is tip number one. Just don't sit there stagnant still, move around the kit and have some real good fun with the cymbals, the drums themselves, and just get into the flow. And if you can do that, you'll enjoy the performance a lot more as well. So tip number two, if you come to play a drum fill, and you're doing the absolute bare essential basics, which in any drumming terms would mean something along the lines of this. And so forth. Now, although some musical contexts and applications will require that to happen, 9 times out of 10, you can be a little bit more flamboyant with your playing. That's a bit boring in terms of a drum fill. Why don't you explore and look at putting different subdivisions together in the fill? So if you're at this level of playing where you've been playing for a little while, you understand what quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets and sixteenths are, mix them up in your drum fill and try and have some fun playing around with different variations of subdivisions, moving around the 4 drums, snare, all the way through to floor. Obviously, if you've got more drums on your kit, then experiment using just different drums all the way through the fill, miss a couple out, move around the kit in different ways, whatever. There's no right or wrong. No one's going to take you to the drum jail for doing it the wrong way around, okay? Just have some fun and find your sound, find your tone. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'll take you through the 4 basic subdivisions one by one through the kit. And you'll hear how that fill that we played earlier now turns into something a little bit more interesting. 1, 2, and 3, triplet, 4, E, and A, okay? Now, if you're playing a drum fill in a song, the likelihood is this will fit in some way, shape, or form. I'll play that fill now at full speed, so you can hear how it sounds played in context. Okay, a bit more interesting. If you want to, play it backwards. And you can hear how the rhythms interplay with one another. If you don't like that fill as a whole, try and pick 2 of the subdivisions and repeat them. So I'm going to go for triplets and 16th notes. I'm going to go for 8th notes and quarter notes. And what about 8th notes and triplets? Okay, notice we always play a crash at the end as well, it's pretty standard because that would be the beat 1 of the next bar. Or what about 8th notes and 16th notes? And hey, if you really want to get experimental, flip it around the other way, 16th into 8th notes. Okay, so I'm just giving you some ideas here to make your basic fills more interesting, to make you sound less boring, because playing drums and sounding boring is boring, in case you haven't guessed the name of the video right now. So, what we're going to do is also now look at playing the fill in a different format. So what about half bar fill? That basically means you're playing for 2 beats of the bar, not 4 beats of the bar as we have been previously. So you would play a groove for the first 2 beats and then play a fill for the second 2 beats. Something along the lines of this. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1, okay? That allows you to play a shorter, more concise fill and still sound interesting, which works really well in the middle of grooves and in the middle of songs where you don't have much time to play around with fills. As you can see there, it doesn't really take away from the groove too much, but it allows you to play a fill and have some fun still. Remember, like I said earlier, try not to be too boring and play simple all the time. Elaborate on your fills and try and use different subdivisions because that will bring some colour into your playing. Now, not every subdivision is going to work with every style of music, but do try it at home with your favourite pieces so you can see what works really well. Next one, tip number 3. So we've spoke about fills and adding in some subdivisions and flair to your playing. What you can also do is talk about some really basic techniques to add some flair into your fills and your grooves, okay? If you haven't heard of this already, this is called a flam, an F-L-A-M, and it's basically 2 hits simultaneously, one slightly behind. And just talking about it really quickly, the technique, if I slowed it down, you'd notice that my left hand, obviously me being a right-handed player, the accent on the flam naturally falls on my left hand. So my left hand's in the full stroke position, my right hand is in the half stroke or tap stroke position. And I lift up and play from this position down so that my right hand is going to hit the snare sooner, but with some slight more force behind it than you would do with a tap stroke. Now, once you've got the grasp of this technique, you can play the rim on the snare, and then the body of the drums moving around the tops. This is quite an effective technique once you get the hang of it, and it can make a simple hit sound more interesting, okay? This is really good for big stops in songs. 2, 3, 4, once more. Because it's really effective and loud, it means that the band and the people around you, and even the audience, are going to really feel that hitting down on the beat there. You can do it on beat 4, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, whatever you feel is best for you. Now, the reason I want to mention the flam is because it's also applicable in subdivisions. And what I mean by that is you can play it at the start of every subdivision we discussed earlier. So I'll do a quarter note flam, an 8th note flam, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so forth. A triplet flam, also known as a Swiss Army triplet. Okay, which sounds sick when you play it fast. Okay, and a 16th note flam pattern as well. Now do consult your drum teacher or look at further videos on how to play these techniques properly. I am diving straight in here, straight into the technique, straight into what we're doing. I'm not going to explain the technicalities in much detail because that's for another time. But if you are interested in some of these more intricate things that are going on, if you speak to a good drum teacher in your local area or check out other videos, you will find the answers to that question on how to play these in more detail, okay? So when you start talking about adding a flam into your playing, it also lifts up the piece. So I can make a fill now sound way more interesting than before, and your friends, family and audience are really going to pick up on this vibe as well, and they're going to feel that something's going on. They're not going to have a clue what it is if they're not drummers, but they'll certainly feel it, and that's what music's all about, it's feeling. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And one more fill. And you can really hear how that brings in some cool effects into your playing and makes it sound a little less boring by just going 1, 2, 3, 4, good night, okay? So that's what you want to try and do if you're playing, is add a bit more flamboyancy in and show people that you know what you're doing. Now, I also mentioned with this technique earlier that you can play it in a groove as well, in the context of either an 8th note groove or a 16th note groove. And I'll just show you a few little tricks you can use this technique in or within a groove, should I say, sorry. And I'll just show you a few little tricks that you can use this technique for in terms of playing as a groove. 1, 2, 3. As you can hear, it's really dead effective. And while it's on my mind, if you know the Nirvana track Smells Like Teen Spirit, that is a classic flam intro. And if you know that piece or the drummer, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about there. It's played in exactly the same way. Flam, hit, flam, hit, flam, hit, flam, hit, flam. Okay? If it's good enough for Nirvana, it's good enough for you not to be a boring drummer. So on to tip number 5 now, and for all you drummers out there who've really enjoyed the video but want something a little bit more, I'm going to talk about that dirty word that gets thrown about in drum lessons and online called displacement. And if you have no idea what it means, hopefully in a few minutes you will. And what's going to happen is, if you like it, you're going to be one of these drummers who learns it and plays it all the time for 5 weeks and really annoys your bandmates because you keep throwing it in inappropriate places in music. We're all guilty of it, but it's such a cool thing that I hope you will take it on board and play it appropriately. Now, the easiest way for me to explain displacement, it might not be for you, but the easiest way I learnt it was taking a backbeat, or not just a backbeat relating to the snare, by the way. It can be a prominent bass drum note beat as well, but I'm going to refer to displacement today from the backbeats, okay, which would traditionally in contemporary music be on beat 2 or 4 of the bar and moving it to somewhere else. Yes, you heard, moving it to somewhere else. 2 really great examples of displacement are Herbie Hancock and Chameleon. If you've heard that beat before, you'll hear that it comes in on the A of 1, straight in onto beat 4 for the backbeat after. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. And also Cold Sweat by James Brown. These 2 songs are classic displacement grooves. Check them out. I might put some links below to some YouTube videos of them for you in the video, and have a little listen to how this works. So if I take a rock beat that you all know already and play beat 2 and 4 as standard, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this would mean that you're a boring drummer, okay? Let's make you sound not boring. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now if I put a more regular bass drum pattern underneath that, you'll start to hear how the groove comes together. Moving on to ride. So what you can hear there is the backbeat of beat 2 being moved a semi-quaver back to the A of 1. Cold Sweat, for instance, is a funk groove by James Brown, which is a similar thing, but displaces a note further down the line. I'll demonstrate the groove now, see if you can pick out where it is. What I'll do for simplicity today is I won't play the open hi-hat section in the track, so it doesn't distract you guys that are counting behind the scenes from where the backbeat is coming in on the snare, okay? And basically, by the 5 tips I've given you today, you don't have to play all these examples as I've done them, okay? You can take your own spin on them and use them in your own ways. But hopefully you've had a bit more of an insight today on how to be a non-boring, more interesting drummer, not only for your audience, but also for your bandmates and the musicians around you, so that you can come up with and perform a more concise, professional show. Remember, don't do this. Because you're not going to get hired, all right? If you've enjoyed the content today, do remember to like, share and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other content such as guitar, bass and piano, which are all really great to watch as well. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll speak to you soon.